We're now live.
Great. Thank you very much. Welcome everyone to the Sonoma-Marin Area Rail Transit Smart Board of Directors meeting of October 19th, 2022. It is 1:30 and time to call our meeting to order. And first up is roll call.
Director Arnold. Absent. Director Bagby. Absent. Director Collin.
Present.
Director Connolly. Absent. Director Corsi.
Here.
Director Fudge.
Here.
Director Garbarino.
Here.
Director Hilmer. Absent. Director Lucan.
Here.
Director Rogers.
Here.
Vice Chair Parr. Absent. Chair Rabbit.
Here.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you all very much. First item on our agenda really is the approval of the October 5th, 2022 board meeting minutes, and looking for my colleagues if there's any questions, comments, concerns on those minutes. If not, can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thanks.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. If we could have a roll call, please, on the approval of the October 5th, 2022 minutes.
Director Arnold.
Here.
To approve of the minutes.
I
Director
think that's a
Bagby.
here and an aye.
Okay.
Director Bagby.
Aye.
Director Collin.
Aye.
Director Connolly. Absent. Director Corsi.
Yes.
Director Fudge.
Aye.
Director Garbarino.
Aye.
Director Hilmer. Absent. Director Lucan.
Aye.
Director Rogers.
Aye.
Vice Chair Parr. Absent. Chair Rabbit.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. And thank you, everyone. Moving on then to item number 4. Three, excuse me, our board member announcements. Is there anyone that has anything to share with the board this afternoon? Not seeing any hands raised. We'll move on then quickly to the general manager's report. Item 4. Eddie?
Thank you.
You're,
Good afternoon, Chair and Board of Directors. I only have 2 items today. I have some exciting information to share about ridership, and I wanted to show a short video highlighting this weekend's Pathway grand opening. As usual, I'll start with ridership. Average weekday boardings continue to increase. Month to date October, we are averaging 2,144 riders per day. That is 9% above last month, 88% above October 21, and 84% of our 2019 weekday boardings. This slide shows average boardings by day of the week over the past 6 weeks. Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays continue to be SMART's highest ridership days, but Mondays and Fridays have been performing much better over the past few weeks. This slide shows weekday ridership over the past 30 days. As expected, weekday ridership continues to climb. As you can see by the orange trend line, we are seeing steady ridership growth. You know, I've sent out a few texts to the board just letting you know we've hit new records over the past couple of weeks. And so we just continue to see those average boardings just continue to climb. So it's really a good sign. This is a slide that I haven't shown the board in quite some time. This slide shows historical monthly ridership since 2017, and the orange line shows the pre-COVID 2019 average. On the next slide that I'm about to show, I'm going to show how SMART compares to other Bay Area transit agencies in regards to recovery ratio. However, I want the board to know that this slide will look slightly different than the public comment the board received from Mr. Arnold. In our calculations, we compared 2022 monthly ridership to 2019. As an example, August 22 compared to August 2019. In Mr. Arnold's calculation, he compared all other transit agencies to 2019, but compared SMART to January, February 2020, where you see the red arrow. As you can see, SMART saw a significant spike in ridership during that time when Larkspur and Novato downtown stations opened. I honestly don't think that Mr. Arnold's rationale is bad, but it assumes that all other transit agencies in the Bay Area have not made any service adjustments since 2019. And I highly doubt that that's happened. So unless the board advises otherwise, we will continue to compare our recovery to 2019 monthly ridership consistent with other agencies. And so when we look at how we compare to 2019, we are performing quite well. When looking at this slide, SMART staff and the board of directors should be very, very proud of this chart. Proposals by staff and the decisions by this board are having a positive impact. Based on the latest NTD data, which is August of 2022, SMART's total ridership is 74% of August 2019. This is the second best recovery ratio in the Bay Area and the highest in commuter rail, which are all highlighted in green. As you know, September and October ridership is higher than August, which will improve our ratio in the coming months when the NTD database is updated. I think this chart validates that this board is making good decisions that are positively influencing ridership, and I think we're going to see this trend continue well into the future. Last but not least, I wanted to remind the board and the public about this weekend's Pathway Grand Opening, and we produced a short video to highlight the event. Play that now. So this is going to be a great event, and we hope to see all of you out there on Saturday. Whoops. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Great, thank you very much. And I'll look to my colleagues and see if there's any questions of the general manager. Not seeing any hands raised. I just want to say thank you, and just to follow through on the ridership numbers, saying thank you to staff, this board, of course, but really staff for making the recommendations to adjust on the fly as we go forward and learn from, the recovery from the pandemic and the unique times that we're in. The proof is in the pudding in terms of the recovery that we've made thus far. So thank you for everyone for looking for ways to increase that ridership, to adapt to changing schedules, and to constantly being nimble, which I think, and I can tell you as a commissioner in MTC, those service adjustments were across the board at all transit agencies. And a lot of transit agencies have not quite gotten back to where, certainly have not gotten back to where we are. So thank you for that. Very much appreciated. With that, we'll move on to item number 5, which is public comment on non-agenda items. And I'll look to those that are with us today to see, are there any hands raised? Now is your opportunity to speak to this body on items that are not on the agenda. I do see one hand raised, and it's Rick Coates. Rick, you're up.
Yes, I've had the opportunity to ride SMART a couple of times this last month, and I have also been impressed with the number of people riding. It's really great to see the increased ridership, and many of the changes that have happened that seem to be positive, particularly the parking situation seems to be improved. So congratulations and thank you to the board and to Eddie.
Thank you, Rick. We appreciate that. And again, I'll look, last chance, anyone from the public like to speak to this body? Not seeing any further hands raised, we'll bring it back and we'll move on then to item number 6, which is the consent calendar. Only one item today on the consent calendar, which is to accept the monthly ridership report from September of 22. And I'll look to my colleagues to see if there's any questions, comments, or concerns. If not, can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. Very quickly, see if there's anyone from our from the public who'd like to speak on the consent calendar. Not seeing any hands raised, I'll bring it back and ask for a roll call vote for the approval of the consent calendar 6A item today.
Director Arnold,
Aye.
Director Bagby,
Aye.
Director Collin,
Aye.
Director Connolly,
Aye.
Director Corsi,
Yes.
Director Fudge,
Aye.
Director Garbarino,
Aye.
Director Hilmer, absent, Director Lucan,
Aye.
Director Rogers,
Aye.
Vice Chair Parr, absent, Chair Rabbit.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on then to the regular calendar. First couple of items are a couple of contract awards. First one being a contract award with Militus Inc. to provide cybersecurity and network threat analysis and assessments for SMART. That's in the amount of $120,000 for an initial term of 3 years. And we have Ryan Brumley to give us a presentation on this item. Ryan?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and Board of Directors. The SMART IT team is pleased to present to you today this recommendation for network auditing services. SMART's IT team manages, secures, and maintains a complex network infrastructure across all SMART offices. Part of maintaining good network security involves a third-party audit of SMART's networks to discover and remediate any vulnerabilities. This preventative maintenance activity ensures the continued security of SMART systems. SMART issued a request for proposal to procure a cybersecurity specialist and received 20 proposals. SMART Selection Committee reviewed the proposals using the evaluation criteria identified in the RFP. Following the evaluation of proposals, reference checks, and negotiations, the Selection Committee made the recommendation that Militus Incorporated provides the overall best benefit for SMART. The action before the board today is to authorize the general manager to award contract number IT-PS-22-002 to Militus Incorporated to provide cybersecurity and network threat analysis and assessments for SMART in the amount of $120,000 for the initial term of 3 years. The board's approval will also authorize the general manager to extend the agreement at his discretion using the 2 one-year options to extend. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Ryan. I'll look to my colleagues. Any questions of staff on this particular item? I just want to say great job. Getting 20 proposals is phenomenal to get that amount of folks offering up their services and making the choice therein. So thank you for that. Before we take a motion, I will look to the public to see if there's anyone from the public who'd like to speak on this particular item. I'm not seeing any hands raised. I'll bring it back to the board and ask for a motion to approve the contract to Militus Inc. for cybersecurity.
So moved.
Great.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second, and I'll ask for a roll call vote, please, on the approval of this contract.
Director Arnold,
Aye.
Director Bagby,
Aye.
Director Collin,
Aye.
Director Connolly,
Aye.
Director Corsi,
Yes.
Director Fudge,
Did you hear me? Aye.
okay, thank you. Director Garbarino,
Aye.
Director Hilmer, absent, Director Lucan,
Aye.
Director Rogers,
Aye.
Vice Chair Parr, absent, Chair Rabbit.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Moving on then to item number 8, authorize general manager to award a contract to Corey Consulting LLC to provide state legislative advocacy services for SMART in the amount of $120,000 for year 1. 120 for year 2, 120 for year 3, 126 for year 4, and 126 for year 5. And we have Ken Hendricks to provide us a presentation on this one. Ken?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Board of Directors. Earlier this year, Smart's general manager and your board of directors, in collaboration with staff and public input received from the listening sessions, developed the Smart House model with 4 strategic objectives: ridership, pathways, extensions, and freight, serving as those 4 pillars. As Smart continues to advance these strategic initiatives, adding a state lobbyist to assist in securing additional funding, advocating for critical policy matters, and elevating Smart's profile at the state legislative level is critical. We issued a request for proposal and received 7 responsive proposals in response, and a selection committee reviewed the proposals using the criteria identified in our RFP. The selection committee shortlisted the 2 top-ranked proposals and conducted in-person interviews at our office here. And upon conclusion of the evaluation process, the selection committee is recommending that Smart award the state legislative advocacy service contract to Corey Consulting LLC. So the action before the board today is to authorize the general manager to award contract OT PS 22001 to Corey Consulting LLC in the amount of $120,000 for each year 1, year 2, and year 3, as well as $126,000 for each of the optional periods. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Great. Thank you very much, Ken. I'll bring it back to the my colleagues. Any questions of staff on this particular item? We're hoping there's a big return on the investment here going forward. I think that goes without saying. I do have one quick question. In what you found with the proposals that were presented, was the $10,000 a month fee common of what we received?
So for the pricing, that is definitely the historical price that Smart has paid in the past. So it's in line with historics, but it is middle of the road. So there were some that were lower as well as some that were significantly higher.
Okay, I appreciate that. I think we all know that there's some months where there's a lot of work and there's some months where there's less work. So it all has to average out. And I was just curious to see where we were in that. So thank you very much, Ken. Again, no questions from my colleagues. I'll look to the public real quickly to see if anyone has any comment on this particular item. Not seeing any hands raised, bring it back to the board and ask for a motion to approve this contract.
I'll move approval of the contract.
Great.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and if we could have a roll call on that, please.
Director Arnold,
Aye.
Director Bagby,
Aye.
Director Cullen,
Aye.
Director Connolly,
Aye.
Director Corsi,
Yes.
Director Fudge,
Aye.
Director Garbarino,
Aye.
Director Hilmer, absent, Director Lucan,
Aye.
Director Rogers,
Aye.
Vice Chair Parr, absent, Chair Rabbit.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. And thank you again, Ken. Next item brings a little joy to my heart, but it's approve a resolution amending the fiscal year 23 annual budget for increased appropriation of $14,100,000 for the completion of the construction of a second Petaluma Smart Station at Corona Road in Petaluma. And Heather is here to give us a presentation on this item.
Yes, thank you, Chair and the board. Yeah, this is a very exciting item for us to be able to bring a budget request forward for this particular project. So with that, I'm going to go give you a short presentation, but all of this information is in the board packet and it starts on page 77. So if you're interested in more detail. The first thing, is this the first page? So the first thing I wanted to show was the funding sources. So the funding sources we have that make up this project are the TIRCP, which is the State Transit and Intercity Rail Capital Program funds. And that's the largest funding source in the amount of $10.1 million. That was part of a joint application with the SCTA and other transit agencies in our area. They combined our request for the Petaluma infill station with some requests for charging stations and zero emission buses those type of things. So it was a originally a I think right around $25 million request, of which we received the $10.1 million. So a huge accomplishment that there for the region. In addition to that, for a match, we are requesting SCTA allocate our portion of the Measure M funds to us for this particular project in the amount of $2 million. And then the city of Petaluma has agreed to put in $2 million towards the project. Now, both the SCTA and the city of Petaluma funds are still pending board approval. For SCTA, due to the holidays, I think they're not going to take that up till December meeting. And the city of Petaluma is still deciding when they'll move that particular forward. But sometime we hope by the end of the year. We did want to get this budgeted though, so we could get the design RFP out. So this particular project will also be combined. The $14.1 million will be combined with our Sonoma County Pathway project and also the McDowell Crossing, because everything is in that area and they overlink, and it would make more sense to combine them into one larger project. We're going to be moving forward with that. So in addition to designing the Petaluma North Station, the consultant will also be combining those projects into one package for construction. And then I just noted of the $10.1 million we received, $578,000 of that was for the McDowell Crossing, and we'll also be combining that with funds that we put in Measure Q funds. On the design side, the RFP is planned to be released either this month or early November with an award in January 2023. So just in a few months from now, even though that seems like a long time, it's right around the corner. The construction contract is estimated to be awarded sometime in the summer of 23, and then construction complete sometime in late summer of 24. So with all that work will be done and completed within the next couple of years. So with that, I'll be glad to take any questions that you may have.
Great, thank you very much. And I'll look to my colleagues I do see one hand raised, and that's Director Cullen. Director Cullen.
Thank you, Heather. And it's just a clarifying, even though I'm just putting it in straightforward terms, because I'm looking at the calendar resolution or the resolution, and it specifically says for increased appropriation of $14 million. And it seems like we'd be, the way it's written, that we're actually taking out of the SMART budget. But what I hear you saying is we're actually utilizing grants that are available, and like there are matches that are coming from the city. So I know when I read it on the calendar, and then when I got the presentation, if you can just speak to that, because the way it reads is that it's our SMART budget, but it kind of, it isn't really, it's not like we're taking 14 million out of our general fund, as it were.
That is correct. It is a grant, but in order for us to be able to spend any grant money we received, whether it be from the city or from the state in the form of the TIRCP funds, we have to be able to appropriate it out of our budget. So the funding sources are state grant money as well as money from the city and SCTA. But in order to spend it, we have to have it appropriated by the board. So, so you are correct in your assessment.
Okay, just wanted to have, clarify, because
yes,
anyone watching it they might have been confused the way that I was. So thank you.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Anyone else have any questions of staff? Not seeing any. Before we take a motion on this particular item, I will look to the public, and I do see a couple of hands raised. First up is Eris Weaver. Eris.
Hi, I actually don't have a comment about this particular item. I'm having a structural comment. When you're sharing your screen, it's not taking over the whole screen as is usual. So as a member of the public, all I'm seeing is the Brady Bunch of all of you. And then the slides are in one of those tiny little squares, so they're impossible to read. So yeah, just some technical, that would be really helpful if that could get fixed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Dwayne.
Unmute. Yes, thank you. First of all, I want to mention that I had a great time taking your SMART and the ferry over to a baseball game, and give me an opportunity to see the number of parking lots. And the parking lot in downtown Petaluma has been quite full. It's really a good news. as this relates to the Corona station, the decisions there was a couple of things that I've never been quite clear. We haven't had a public hearing at SMART on the design for how we're going to get the cars to the station. A faction in Petaluma plans on using the Rainier overcrossing to help with that, but that'll be determined in the next election. It'll be interesting to see who wins. Our traffic design, though, I've never seen anything, a traffic report. And what I'm going to encourage is that you not be selling any property downtown, like in 12B, until you get a confirmation that you're actually going to have a decent traffic situation at the Corona station. You lost from measure Q, you had over 75% in favor of SMART, and measure I, the east side of Petaluma, and I assume it's because you didn't build them a station, went down to 48%. If you build them a station but have the traffic around the station impossible to get there, you won't gain any votes. So I hope you take a good look at the traffic situation before you do any additional changes of either selling or renting property in downtown, because you may need it for parking. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dwayne. Anyone else in the public like to speak on this particular item? Not seeing any hands raised, I'll bring it back to the board. And I just want to say thank you very much again to staff for pursuing and working with all the entities to get these numbers. And it's wonderful that we got the TIRCP funds and to the city of Petaluma for maintaining their commitment of the $2 million and to SCTA for partnering with us so well. So I just want to say thank you to everyone. Thanks for all the work. Look forward to this really important new station coming online with the second largest city in our county, at least. And a lot of ridership potential over on the east side of town, making it much easier for connections up and down the corridor. So thank you so much for that. I will look for a motion to approve this budget amendment.
As a representative from Marin County, we're delighted to make the motion to approve this, and congratulations.
Yeah, no, thank you, Director Arnold. That's great. And the second by?
Patty.
Patty Garbarino, thank you. We'll double it up on Marin for this one, but I think it's a benefit to all of us. So thank you. And with that,
Yeah.
we have a roll call vote on item number 9, please.
Director Arnold,
Aye.
Director Bagby,
Aye.
Director Collin,
Aye.
Director Connolly,
Aye.
Director Corsi,
Yes.
Director Fudge,
Aye.
Director Garbarino,
Aye.
Director Hilmer, absent. Director Lucan,
Aye.
Director Rogers,
Aye.
Vice Chair Parr, absent. Chair Rabbit.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Moving on then to item number 10, another great item, approving SMART's field trip program for the youth in grades K through 12 for school groups. And we have Emily Betts to give us a presentation on this particular item. Emily?
Good afternoon, Chair and Board of Directors. I'm excited to be bringing this field trip program to you today. So SMART has always carried field trips on our system. We definitely carried more before COVID, but we're still carrying a few per year, I would say at this point. If you have familiarity with the kids in the school system, and I've learned this every year having my own kids in the school system, they have very limited budgets for field trips. And it's often prohibitive and keeps them from going on field trips. And many teachers had to postpone trips during COVID, even after school was started again because of COVID issues and because of budget restrictions. And so SMART came up with this program as a way to offer an affordable way for schools to use the train to take kids on field trips. And that also has the added bonus of exposing the kids to our train system, many of whom have never been on SMART. So these are the proposed guidelines for the system. The students would ride free of charge, and any adults on the trip would just pay regular fare. All the trips must happen on non-peak trains, which is really just 3 trains that we have specified on our website. And the trips must be prearranged with smart staff so that we can help them plan the trip and also be a point of contact in case there's any issues that arise. We can help with any trip planning, including if the school trips groups would like to take a bus to somewhere that's not on the train line. And our outreach staff is going to distribute passes to the groups in order to have some proof of payment for the train ride. I've included a few destinations for each county. Obviously, there are more that could be added. We have a website page that includes all of the guidelines I've just gone over, as well as a list of all these destinations with walking directions from the train station to the destinations and a link to the website with information on how to plan a field trip. So here are a few for Sonoma County. And then there's a number of great destinations in Marin County as well. And we've also listed the option of simply taking the train to one end and having a safety talk and an activity led by the outreach staff and taking the train back, which would be a trip that's more designed around learning how to use a public transit system. It would also be completely free of charge as well. So the recommendation to the board is to approve the field trip program, and I'm happy to take questions.
You're on mute, David.
Apologize. I do see a couple of hands raised of my colleagues. First up is Director Fudge. Director Fudge.
Thank you. This isn't really a question, but I was just super pleased to see this. This is going to help create new writers, younger writers or new writers. And the fact that we're willing to help plan these expeditions will really help teachers. And it just brought a huge smile to my face. And thank you for bringing this forward.
Great, thank you. And Director Bagby.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, just echoing Deb's comments. Thank you so much, Emily, for bringing this forward. I think this is going to be a great resource for teachers. And my only comment is that if you haven't already, maybe make contact with the education folks over at Sonoma Water that already do the water and energy resources. They might be a great place to just to make a connection between our outreach staff and theirs, because they have people who are accredited in education geared for kids. And then I'll want to know how to tag along on one of the field trips at some point too. So it sounds like fun. So thanks so much for bringing this in. So happy to see it. And I know I'm just somebody who I've brought visitors from outside the area, and they were just excited to ride on SMART and go through the Narrows, go and have lunch, in Petaluma or Marin and ride back on the train. It just, for train heads, it's just something that they enjoy doing. And I think kids are going to really enjoy it too. So thanks so much for bringing it forward today.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? We do have I will go to public comment here real quickly. We have 3 hands raised. And first up, we have Danny Sheehan. Danny.
Hi, thank you so much for all the work that you guys do. And I just want to say that this is so on track. I mean, it's just really a great idea of community, an example of community outreach. In theory, we could go to the Exploratorium, although it takes a little longer. But getting the youth to ride the train and be sure and put a little marketing piece in each one of their backpacks to take home to their parents. Thank you for bringing this forward.
Thank you, Danny. Steve Bertelbaugh.
It's mostly been said, but I hope that we can in the future look forward to trips to the city and expand this as far as we can. Thank you. Congratulations to the staff.
Great. Thank you, Steve. And Eris Weaver.
Hi, thank you. I think this is a great idea and a great use of, the technology allowing kids to learn how to use public transit in order to get somewhere. One of my concerns is looking at the list of some of the destinations that you listed. If I try to imagine walking a group of children from the Santa Rosa North station to the Schultz Museum, or walking a group of kids from the Petaluma downtown station, over to the museum, those locations are, I find, really challenging as a confident bike rider crossing those streets, particularly the Petaluma station. I've almost been wiped out several times. So I would have a hard time imagining marching a whole group of school children through some of these areas. So I'm hoping that whatever gets put out to the educational community about these options and the routes does address some of the safety concerns at some of these locations. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public like to speak on this particular item? Not seeing any hands raised, I'll bring it back to the board. I could just say, I want to say, Director Lucan.
Sorry, just had one real quick. As far as getting this word out to all of the schools, school districts, I know we've got a pretty good database from the train safety programs. Can you maybe speak a little bit more to how we're really going to promote this out? It looks like the link in the staff report or this letter here is not quite live just yet, but how do we tell everybody about this great program?
That's a great question. We have been discussing this with outreach, and we have a pretty comprehensive list of all the schools in Marin and Sonoma counties. I believe the field trip program is live as of today. There's a banner put on our main page so that they can find it. So we're hoping to get it into their school newsletters and get the information to teachers. But yeah, we'll definitely be doing an outreach process to the schools.
Sounds good. I just noticed the link in the staff report. I believe it was field trip program without hyphens, but the actual link has hyphens in it. So maybe we can correct that in the staff report for anybody that were to click on that old link.
Thank you. We'll make sure that happens.
Thank you. Any other, before we, I will look for a motion to approve.
As a former teacher, happily to approve.
Second.
Totally appropriate. And we have a motion and a second. Just before, I will say, as a former two-term PTA president who actually worked with other parents to fund field trips, this is a great item to bring forward. And from that experience, I know that this program will actually provide the first train ride for many kids. And that, to me, is also of great value. And it is true that the exposure to the train for the kids will hopefully percolate to the parents. But even more so than that, just to provide this service for kids in both of our counties, I think is so valuable. So thank you, Emily, and thank you to staff for bringing this forward. And so we do have a motion and a second, and I'll look for a roll call vote of approval on this particular item.
Director Arnold,
Aye.
Director Bagby,
Aye.
Director Collin,
Aye.
Director Connolly,
Aye.
Director Corsi,
Yes.
Director Fudge,
Aye.
Director Garbarino,
Aye.
Director Hilmer, absent, Director Lucan,
Aye.
Director Rogers,
Aye.
Vice Chair Parr, absent, Chair Rabbit.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. And thank you again, Emily. And back to Emily for the bicycle and pedestrian counters on segments of the multi-use pathway, an informational item for us today. Emily?
All right, thank you. So I'm here to report on our new bicycle and pedestrian counters on the pathway. So I wanted to start with the question of why are we counting pathway users? So in our listening sessions in 2020 and 2022, many members of the public pointed out that we should be tracking the pathway usage in order to better describe the benefits of this substantial public investment. It's pretty common practice with municipalities with multi-use pathways to capture the pathway usage in order to justify the investment and also plan future infrastructure. And many of our current grant sources that have funded pathway construction, as well as future grant sources, require counting on the pathways. So for our initial phase of this counting program, we selected 10 locations, 5 in each county. And again, these were partially selected by our current grant requirements, and then also selected with an eye towards what data would be most interesting from a user perspective based on what has been built in the last decade. And we worked closely with the bicycle coalitions on this. We selected a technology made by EcoCounter called the multi-counter. And this is typically installed permanently, and it allows a very detailed level of analysis. You can look at it on an hourly basis, daily, weekly, monthly, and it combines 2 different types of sensors, the infrared sensor and an inductive loop, so that you can differentiate between bicycles and pedestrians. And they're very resilient, they're very low key, they don't tend to be tampered with, and they can handle a large group of pedestrians or bicyclists. And this is a picture of one of the counters at Santa Rosa North. You can see on the right, that's the counter with the infrared sensor facing towards the pathway. And then you can sort of barely see in the shadows there. I hope you can see there's a loop cut into the pavement. So there are a few different ways to look at this data. This initial chart is showing the average weekday path users, and it's broken into pedestrians and bicyclists. And as you can see from that orange and blue, it's about even. We have just as many pedestrians using the pathway as bicyclists. Overall, for this time period, which is the 30 days included in the staff report, it was 54% pedestrians and 46% bicyclists. But obviously that varies a little bit depending on the location. And these tables are going south to north, with that longest line at the top being just south of the Cal Park Tunnel at Larkspur. That's by far the highest usage location that we installed. And then I'll just read them down in case you're having a hard time seeing it on the screen. Like someone mentioned, San Rafael, the next 2 are Novato, and then Payran Street in Petaluma, Rohnert Park, 3 more in Santa Rosa. And then we also have 1 more pending Caltrans permit that we're going to put in San Rafael for a total of 10. This chart shows weekday versus weekend users, with the orange being weekend, I believe. There we go. And the blue being weekday. And as you can see, again, it's very evenly split. We tend to have just as many people using them on weekdays and weekends, varying a little bit by location. So in preparation for this meeting, I ran a more up-to-date 30-day report, and this shows monthly totals by location. And so I included the total of 48,000 from the previous report in the memo, but as time moved forward and as schools got back in session, I think, and as people returned more to the workplace, that number increased even more. So for the 30-day period, September 16th to October 16th, we saw a total of, 68,014 riders, which is really a huge amount of people using our pathway. And really great news, I think, and a really good sign to the board that all the investment that we have put and continue to put into the pathway has been very well utilized. And you can see that, again, the Cal Park Tunnel at Larkspur accounts for a huge share of those, 29,000 total monthly users. Here's a couple more photos to give you a sense of what they look like. So the one on the left is just south of the Cal Park Tunnel. You can just kind of barely see that loop cut into the pavement there in the forefront. And then on the right is in Santa Rosa, just south of 8th Street. So the next steps for this is we're going to continue to monitor and validate the counters. They do take routine maintenance and inspection from our maintenance of way team. And we'll continue to do deeper dive analyses. And, I've had many partner agencies excited to hear that we've installed these counters and they would like to use the data, which is great, to start to validate some of their own projects and as support for grant applications. And I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you again, Emily. Appreciate that very much. And I'll look to my colleagues. I do see a couple of hands raised. And first up is Director Corsi. Director.
Thank you. Thanks, Emily. This is really interesting information and great information to have. I was trying to do some math in my head, which is always a dangerous exercise. But it looks like these numbers are pretty close to, or maybe just a little bit more than our ridership numbers on a monthly basis. Is that, am I right there?
Yes, that's correct.
It's kind of amazing how close they come to being the same. Just a comment. Thanks.
No, thank you. Appreciate that. Director Garbarino.
Thank you. Yeah, I've seen these in operation actually in Anchorage, and at first, and they have a big mini billboard actually, where it shows the number of bikes that are going to and from, and it's a little bit Big Brother-esque, and those people that are already riding a bike are probably even more encouraged to do so. But it's a great idea, and it stimulates thought and people continuing to use their bikes. So good for you guys for coming up with this plan.
Great, thank you. Director Lucan.
Just two questions. The location of these counters and trackers, were the locations determined to be the best locations, assuming the pathway is completely built out, or are these the best locations we had at the current state? And I know we've got some significant gaps in the system in Novato. One of the reasons why we've got lower pedestrian and bicycle usage there. But once those gaps get completed, would the trackers remain where they are, or would we potentially need to move any of them? What's the best way to site these?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's not really an exact science. I do think it will be interesting as the pathway segments are completed to see what the effect is on the existing segments. And these counters will allow us to do that. I don't think we would move a counter. I think we would probably just buy another counter as needed or desired and install it at that new location.
Okay. And then the second question, because the counters are able to differentiate between a pedestrian and a bike, do they have the capability of determining the speed of a bike by any chance, or is that too granular?
No, they don't. That would be interesting, but no, they can't do that.
Is something just kind of on the topic. We had an unfortunate incident in southern Marin with an e-bike, and I know the topic of e-bikes and speed of e-bikes is a little more front and center. Whether or not there's capabilities of tracking that at some point, or even putting up some of the on bike pass, the automated continue the loop that goes back to the rider of how fast they're going are both pros and cons. People, sometimes it might help them slow down. Other people's like to see how fast they can get that to register on their bike. So it has its pros and cons, but I guess in the future of tracking, that might be of interest in the future. This is great. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Director Fudge.
So we all knew Cal Park would be a huge success, but I just want to acknowledge Deb Hubsmith from the Marin County Bicycle Coalition, who really championed this tunnel and this bikeway from so many years ago, and lobbied for it and went to DC. Charles McGlashan and I went to DC once with her to lobby for money for it. And I was thinking of her today, and this is a huge testament to her hard work and others as well. But I was stunned to see so many bikes going through there, and it's really a good connection. And to know the numbers is amazing.
Great, thank you.
Well said.
Anyone else have any questions, comments, or staff? Again, informational discussion item only. We'll look to the public, and we do have a couple of hands raised, 3 actually. And first up is Matthew Hartzell. Matthew.
Thank you, Chairman Rabbit. And this is Matthew Hartzell of WTB TAM. And thank you, Emily, for this presentation. This is really valuable data. And we want to express our support for the fact that you're collecting it and sharing it, and support for continued collection of this sort of data in the future, and even more sensors. But it's really good to see what's happening on the pathway. And I want to echo Director Fudge's comments just now that I think the data really show that the Cal Park Hill Tunnel is an enormous success, and we always knew it would be, but the numbers speak for themselves. And there's only a couple other locations in the United States where there's a tunnel with a bike path and an operating railroad sharing the tunnel in the same space. And we have one of them right here in Marin County. So it's really something special. And thank you for everybody who helped make it possible. And let's keep making the system even better. Thanks.
Thank you, Matthew. Eris Weaver.
Hi, Eris Weaver with the Sonoma County Bicycle Coalition. I am so happy to see this data and for this to have finally happened. I actually really like how unobtrusive the counters are compared to the ones where they do have a big, how many, I mean, I suppose there's an advantage to that, but I like the fact that it's unobtrusive so people aren't freaking out about it. I've ridden right past a couple of them without probably even noticing them. It sort of matches my experience of the path well, actually it's even the numbers are higher than even I thought they would be, really, of how many cyclists and pedestrians are out there. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what the results are when some of the gaps are closed. My hypothesis is that I don't know how much walking pedestrian usage will increase, because how pedestrians don't travel as far generally as cyclists do, but I'm hypothesizing that we'll see a even bigger increase in bicycle usage when there is a farther distance that people can go. So for example, I would be using the path more, once the Roanoke Park's Santa Rosa gap is closed, that I can actually take it all the way to more places, but to have this beginning data is so important, because you just can't see what changes are if you don't know what was happening first. And I'm really hoping that at some point a next step would be, just like you've done a lot of surveys and interviews and listening sessions and stuff with riders, to do something with folks on the path. I mean, a lot of the sort of the bicycling community that I represent has certainly shown up and said what we think about things about the path, but there's a lot of people on that path that aren't part of that community, whether it's the people walking or other people cycling for transportation who are not, real embedded in our community, that may have very different things to report than we do. So I think that would be a really interesting follow-up. Since we've got more people using it than we have riding the train, let's take just the same amount of care in finding out what people's experience are and what they want and what they think. Thanks.
Thank you. Danny Sheehan.
Terrific data, and I hope that we can incorporate, or the general manager can incorporate this into the ridership totals, being like just a really important statistic, and to bring those numbers up, because it's double basically. Also, I was just a little confused, Emily, on track. You said something about it's tracking south. I assume it's tracking north and south riders and pedestrians. Can you just explain that for us, the lay people, a little better? Thank you.
Thank you. We'll come back to that after public comment if we can. First, next up is Zoe. Is it Rekas?
Hi, yes, thank you, Chair Rabbit and members of the board. I'm Zoe Rekas, Advocacy Assistant with the Marin County Bicycle Coalition. And on behalf of our organization, I just wanted to say thank you to the board and staff for all of the hard work that went into installing these bike and pedestrian counters on the pathway. Having this data that shows the type and volume of users is immensely important to the work that we do, and it helps demonstrate that SMART really is a multimodal agency. I also want to commend Ms. Betts for her work and attention on this project. We greatly appreciated the opportunity to provide input on the locations of the pathway counters and look forward to continued collaboration with SMART and MCBC, as well as with our friends at the Sonoma County Bicycle Coalition. And we're excited to see these user counts increase as more and more of the segment pathways are completed, which is going to help make Marin and Sonoma County safer and more accessible for folks that travel on foot and bike. So thank you again for all of your hard work and your time today.
Great, thank you. Jack Swearingen, and Jack, I saw your hand go up after we closed public comment on the last item. So if you want to make a comment regarding the youth program, please go ahead.
The youth program quickly offers the elements of a solution along with it, because the trains are on a schedule. When there are going to be excursions, field trips, SMART and or the schools can arrange for public safety officers or crossing guards to be there at the moment the students are going to be crossing to and from the train. So that's a problem that has a solution already made for it by the scheduled trips. Now, with regard to the current issue of ridership on the pathway, it's a perfect opportunity to remind everyone that SMART is and always was rail and trail, and the two should be counted together. It's not fair or even proper to separate them and say, well, the train only carries this many and the path carries that many, and therefore here's the cost per person. In fact, they were born together and neither would exist without the other. So it's very appropriate to talk about both together and the totals. And by the way, I thought Ira said the pathway took more riders than the train. I think I heard they are quite similar. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Jack. Rick Coates.
Yes, as I mentioned, I had an opportunity to ride the train a couple of times this month. I took my bicycle with me on that and also rode the trail. So I guess I was one of those counted going through the tunnel. And every time I go through the tunnel, I note the plaque that is on the side of the tunnel there as Director Fudge mentioned, for Deb Hudsmith. Having known her and how hard she worked on that, I think she can't get too much credit for it. I had with me another bicyclist, and she was very pleased to see that the so-called breadcrumbs are now on the pavement, directing people to the ferry. Very helpful, she thought. So kudos all around.
Thank you, Rick. Last chance. Anyone else like to speak to this body on this particular matter? Not seeing any. I will bring it back to the board. There was one question there, Emily. I think how the counters work. Are they bi-directional, I guess?
Yeah, yeah, they are
respond to that?
bi-directional. Yeah. I'm
Okay.
sorry if that was confusing.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. And again, informational item. Much appreciate the work. Once again, important information and data to have, and agree that it doubles the usage of the system, as it were, going forward. So thank you for that work. We will move on to item number 12. Item number 12 is closed session. We have two items for closed session and listed in the agenda today. I will turn it over to our general counsel just to take us into closed session to make sure that the proper words are spoken.
Thank you, Chair Rabbit. Yes, we in fact have two items in closed session. The first one is labor negotiations pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. And then the second item is real estate negotiations pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8. And we'll be reporting out of closed session after the closed session is over.
Great, thank you for that. Appreciate it. And I know all my colleagues have received a separate Zoom link to closed session. And with that, we will recess or go into closed session and with a report out afterwards. So I'll see you all there. Thank you to the public who will be departing.
Reporting out of closed session, items 12A and 12B, direction was given to staff. That concludes our hearing for today.